Hi everyone, welcome to my little corner of vegan YouTube. My name is Alina. Today I'm really excited to share with you a recipe for delicious, thick vegan yogurt that I make in the Instant Pot. What I love about this yogurt is that it's made with just 3 simple plant-based ingredients. I don't add any sugar or thickeners, and yet it comes out naturally thick and creamy. It has real probiotics. It makes a lot, and so by serving it comes out much cheaper than if you were to buy something like this at the store. Once it's done, if you want it sweet or with fruit in it, you can definitely add that to it. So it's fantastic, really versatile. A few quick words on how I discovered this recipe. A few months ago, I saw this Instagram reel by Miyoko Schinner, the great Miyoko, the founder of Miyoko's Creamery, the company that she is no longer with. If you didn't know, Miyoko made this fantastic plant-based yogurt at home. And I gotta tell you, I have tried making vegan yogurt before, but it never came out thick. The flavor was there, but the texture wasn't great. It was kind of runny, more like drinkable yogurt. So I kind of gave up on that idea. But when I saw Miyoko make her yogurt and how thick it came out, I was like, oh my God, I totally have to try doing this myself. So I went ahead and tried it, and a little bit of trial and error there. But fast forward to today, I've tweaked it a little bit and adapted it to Instant Pot, and it comes out great every single time. And so let me show you how I do this. Let's go.
First, I'm going to get my ingredient number 1, which is old-fashioned oats. I'm going to get 2/3 cups of them and dump them in the pitcher of my Vitamix, along with 4 cups of filtered cold water.
One thing to keep in mind is that the pitcher has to be clean. So like if the last thing you made in it was some kind of creamy, garlicky sauce, you definitely want to give it a rinse because you don't want any of that residue accidentally mixing in with your yogurt. So if you don't remember the last thing you made in it, no problem. But just to be on the safe side, give it a quick rinse.
Next up, we've got our ingredient number 2, which is raw cashews, also 2/3 of a cup. I'm going to soak the cashews in cold water. Doesn't matter how much, we're going to dump out that water later anyway. As long as they're floating in there freely, it should be okay. So at this point, I'm going to let the cashews and the oats soak for a couple hours.
So you may wonder, why am I pre-soaking my oats and cashews? Isn't Vitamix going to, get it all nice and smooth? And yes, of course it will. But when we pre-soak them, the results will come out much nicer and creamier. In that video by Miyoko, once she blended the oats, she put oat milk through a nut milk bag, catch all those thicker little bits that didn't blend properly. But I find that if you pre-soak the oats and the cashews, they get much softer, and basically there won't be a need to use the nut milk bag. Also, another reason is that some dietitians believe if you pre-soak oats and nuts before you eat them, then it makes the nutrients in them more bioavailable, which means, our bodies will absorb them much better than if we were to just eat them straight as is.
So it's been a couple hours. I took my daughter to daycare, ran some errands, and now I'm back to making my yogurt. I'm going to dump my rinsed cashews into the pitcher with the oats. Next up, it's time to blend everything. So I'm going to blend it a little bit longer than I usually do smoothies or something like that, because I really want to make sure everything's blended nice and smooth so that the yogurt comes out nice and creamy. So this is what it's going to look like once it's blended. You see that it's already pretty thick for non-dairy milk, but just right for my yogurt.
The next step is to cook this milk on the stovetop to get it nice and thick as we want our yogurt to be.
I'm going to use a clean saucepan and pour my milk right into it. Then I'm going to start heating it up on the stove over medium heat. Now the important thing here is that we continue stirring the whole time the milk is heating up, because if we leave it alone and walk away for a few minutes, then the sides and the bottom will start thickening a little bit too fast and may even burn. So once we go and stir everything together, we'll see these kind of unsightly and unpleasant clumps.
It will all ferment just fine eventually, but the texture will be totally off. So continue stirring it. It takes anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes, nice and slow. Make sure to get all the sides of the pot and the bottom so that nothing burns, nothing sticks, nothing thickens too fast.
About 5 minutes later or so, you'll notice that the milk started thickening. At first, it'll be a little bit stuck to the spoon. And then another 2 to 3 minutes later, you'll see that the milk will start getting steamy and it will get much, much thicker as a result. This is about as thick as I want my yogurt to be, so I'm gonna go ahead and take my pot off the heat.
Now that the milk has thickened, I need to measure the temperature. This is optional, but I just want to know how hot it is because after this point we need to cool it off. So if I know how hot it is, then I can kind of sort of guess how long it's going to take to cool it all off.
Now I've got my regular grilling thermometer. I put its point in the center of the milk. Careful not to touch the spatula or the bottom of the pot. And you can see that the arrow is slowly starting to go. It's getting a little steamy, but it's not so bad. So you see that it's at 140 and still keeps climbing. And as you see, eventually got to about 150 degrees. Next up, we need to cool this milk because if we add our yogurt culture to the milk that's 150 degrees, then unfortunately the yogurt culture will die and the yogurt won't ferment properly. So to avoid it, we need to cool the milk to about 110 degrees. At this temperature, it will be nice and comfortable during fermentation.
The quickest way to do this is doing an ice bath. Now, I know that it sounds like, oh, not another boring stirring thing. But trust me, this is much quicker than if you were to just let your milk sit there for a few hours until it's finally there. After that, we have all day to ferment it. So let's just do an ice bath. I promise it's not that complicated and it's pretty fast. So let me show you how I do it.
So I've got my bowl with thickened milk. I'm going to put it inside of this bigger bowl that I've added some ice to. Now I'm going to pour some cold water in between the bowls until it reaches about the same level as the yogurt in the glass bowl. Next, it's time to start stirring. Now you got to remember that most of the heat is going to be in the middle of the bowl and the sides of the bowl will cool off much faster. So there are two ways to stir this milk to get it to cool off the quickest. We can either scrape the sides of the bowl and kind of fold them towards the center, or we can start from the center and kind of spread the milk around the sides. Now, keep in mind that it doesn't usually take the milk too long to cool off, so usually in about 4 to 5 minutes I'm going to take the temperature to find out if the milk has cooled off to about 110 degrees or if it needs a little longer. As you can see, the temperature of my milk has now reached somewhere between 105 and 110 degrees, so we're all good to go.
Now we are up to our most important step, adding the yogurt culture. Obviously, there's a question, what do we use as a yogurt starter? There are two directions we can go in. The first one is to use commercially made vegan yogurt starter culture. I know that Cultures for Health makes a really good vegan yogurt starter. I've tried it like years ago and flavor-wise, the results were great. Another way, easier and quicker these days, is to use a little bit of store-bought unsweetened plain yogurt. This brand, Forager, is my favorite unsweetened plain vegan yogurt. It's nice and thick and it has 5 types of live active yogurt cultures. I've bought this jar, I think last November or December, and used the last little bit to start my yogurt, and I've been saving a couple tablespoons of every batch to make the new batch. So if you can find it at the store, it's awesome. If you can't, then there are some other non-dairy unsweetened plain yogurts that you can try. If you can find unsweetened plain vegan yogurt, then you can just use something like vanilla flavor. Since we're only using 2 tablespoons, once you add it to a whole batch of yogurt, then it's going to dissolve pretty nicely and it's going to taste just fine.
As you can see, I still use the same container to store my yogurt. This is what's left of my previous batch. I'm going to scoop it out of here and gently fold it into my thickened milk.
Now, a step that can make it or break it when it comes to the flavor of your yogurt. You got to make sure that the Instant Pot equipment, both the bowl and the lid, are clean and have absolutely no smell of any sort, especially if you made something funky in it last night. So when it comes to the bowl, I suggest that you just add a little bit of baking soda and scrub it real good with a little bit of water, and make sure to scrub off any of the funky looking spots that you may still have. Once you scrub it nice and good and rinse it off and you can see your own reflection in it, then it's just right. But even more important than this is the lid. And in particular, I'm talking about this silicone ring that seals the lid and the pot. Maybe you're making some soups with bay leaf or some strong spices, or a curry or some Thai food. Unfortunately, over time, all those delicious smells will absorb into the ring. And whenever you cook something plain, it may really spoil the flavor of that thing. Actually, I remember this story in this one Facebook group for bloggers that I am a part of. This woman was a food blogger, not a vegan one. She was making Oreo cheesecake in her Instant Pot, and it came out looking just beautiful. But her mistake was that right before that, she cooked pulled pork in that exact Instant Pot. And so the ring absorbed the flavors of pulled pork and gave it to her beautiful cheesecake. So she got pulled pork flavored Oreo cheesecake, which is, I don't think anybody would be a big fan of that. So to make sure this doesn't happen, I highly recommend that you have some spare silicone rings. I will post a link in the video description to the rings that I bought on Amazon. It's a set of 3 rings that work great, and I keep one specifically for my yogurt. I don't make anything else with it. Check them out. I'm gonna put the link down in the description.
All right, I'm going to add my yogurt into the bowl of my Instant Pot, give it a quick stir, and put it into my actual Instant Pot. Once I plug it in, it's going to say off. I'm going to put the lid on and secure it. Now I'm going to press the yogurt button a few times until I see this boil, and after that you see the timer that you can change using the plus and minus buttons. I'm going to set it for 8 hours. Once I do, the timer will start counting up instead of down, like a lot of other Instant Pot options do.
The longer time you set, the more tart the yogurt will come out. I usually set it between 8 and 8.5 hours because I like my yogurt a little bit more tart. If you want that tartness to be a little more subtle, then just set it for like 7.5 hours. So that's it. Let's leave our yogurt to cook for a while, and in the meantime, I have a mountain of dishes to clean.
So it's been 8 hours, and guess what? My yogurt is done. All right, let's open the lid and take a look. Okay, you see that it's really, really thick and creamy. At this point, I usually take a taste to make sure that it's tart enough for me. If not, I can just keep it in my Instant Pot covered with a lid for another half an hour to an hour. And after that, I'm going to put it in my containers. This forager container will keep 3 cups. And the rest I'll put in this Pyrex glass container. So I'll have a total of about 4.5 cups. After that, I'm going to put it into my fridge and keep it there overnight. Tomorrow we'll take a final taste and see what it's like. All right, so it's been about 18 hours. Obviously, you don't have to wait that long, but I just didn't have time to check it earlier. But look at this, how beautiful and thick it is. Just perfect, just what I wanted. So there's just one thing left. We've got to do the taste test.
You know what? I'm actually curious if the spoon will stand in it. Let's see. It does. Okay. All right. Perfection. If you are into unsweetened plain yogurt, like cultured dairy or non-dairy, this is perfect. It's not super tart, but you can definitely taste that nice little tartness from the culture. The thickness, I think, is, obviously it's really, really nice. The starch and the oats worked out so well. There was no need for any additional thickeners, like no kind of cornstarch, arrowroot starch, nothing like that. Yeah, if you're in the market for homemade plant-based yogurt with natural living cultures, if you're in the market for homemade plant-based yogurt that has actual cultures, is nice and thick, is much cheaper to make than buying those little containers at the store, I highly recommend this. So if you try this recipe, please let me know how it came out. I'd love to hear that. All right, so thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give it a like down below. I appreciate it. YouTube will, push out this video to more people as a result. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I'm trying to grow my subscriber base, so if you like what you see, please subscribe. Next up, check out this video over here. This is my recipe for delicious vegan fried eggs, made with just one ingredient that you can find in most grocery stores these days. I make these in a batch and freeze them, and then we use them throughout the week to put them into bagel sandwiches, on toast. So if you are vegan, but if you miss the flavor of fried eggs, check it out, and I will see you right there. Bye-bye.